is so hard.
Really? Yeah.
Sorry.
Everybody ready? Yeah. There we go. Good evening. I'd like to call the study session of the Board of Education for April 21st tonight to order. And please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag's at the back of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Announcements. We have probably have some people who aren't normally at a board meeting, and we always, I feel like the fireman down at the Troy Music Hall who tells people where the exits are, but exit at the back of the room the way you came in, and there's an exit at the front of the room. I think it's locked. Although I probably shouldn't mention that because I understand it's locked tonight. So the exit's at the back of the room. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Bob, second. Todd? All those in favor? The agenda is adopted. This is a study session meeting designed for the purpose of having some administrative updates to the Board of Education. We've had a lot of meetings lately dealing with budgets, and tonight we'll deal with the BOCES budget. There are no public comments at study sessions. Residents may attend the next scheduled business meeting. That's on May 12th, and or contact the board via email at boe@shenet.org with any comments or questions. All questions come into the superintendent's office, are shared with the board policy. Board policy questions or concerns are typically answered by the board president. Operational questions or concerns are typically addressed by the superintendent. And we'll move directly into superintendent communication.
Thank you very much, Mr. Casey. Three topics I would like to engage the board in some conversation. One is more informational. The roadshow, budget roadshow, so far, Mrs. Wetmore actually right now, which I'll have to look at Mrs. Mickle, I think she's at the Octave PTA. Okay, so I was just trying to make sure the Octave PTA meeting is going on since all the Octave people are here. So we're actually on our 10th presentation of the budget to a wide variety of groups, from PTA groups to faculty groups. Last night we were at the Town of Clifton Park board meeting. They were gracious enough to put us early on the agenda, gave us the opportunity to present to those in attendance. So a lot of presentations with the budget, and so far I think people are receptive in terms of the things that we're trying to do with this particular budget, and we're pleased with some of the feedback that we're getting so far. The second topic is one that I would like to engage.
Let me just say, before you move on to that, if anybody in the audience knows somebody that we should be meeting with that isn't on our normal schedule, let Oliver's office, let the board know, and we'll schedule somebody coming out and talking about it. This is really, the board is a policy board, and we look at policy, but in truth, I think the biggest policy we consider every year is the budget. That sets the tone for the entire year. So it's really important, and we're excited about this budget, but we need to get that excitement outside this room, and make sure that there's information out there. People can make up their own mind, but they need the information. So if anybody thinks of a place that we should be to talk about the budget, let us know, and we'll accommodate, right?
Yep, absolutely. And if I see Mrs. Wetmore's back, so that means Octave must have went well. So again, it is absolutely important. The issue that we are most concerned about each year is empathy. People saying, yeah, it's a good budget, or yeah, it'll pass, and don't come and show up to vote, and it's important for people to do so. So I just wanted to let the board know that we're on the road, so to speak, doing the presentations, and certainly many times the board members are present, and we acknowledge board members at those meetings, and to ensure that people realize that this is a collective effort. The other two topics I would like to engage the board in some conversations with. One topic has to do with for the past maybe 3 months or so, we've been looking at the enrollment balancing at some of our elementary schools. And as we're getting into the budget process now and looking at adding staff and quite frankly some other dynamics that are playing out somewhat differently than we initially anticipated, want to engage the board in a conversation about looking to postpone what we're looking to do at the elementary level in terms of the rebalancing piece a little bit. It's not a board action. The board policy allows for the conversation to take place. I want to make sure that people understand that the board passed policy years back. It's actually been on the books since redistricting, first time we redistricted. But I think it's a conversation that's important for the board, because this topic has been brought to this board's attention, so I think it's important for the board to engage in some conversation so the public can hear the board's perspective on where we are and what I'm proposing tonight. So
one thing I thought was very interesting from the speakers we had at our last meeting, both the level of concern, but also the fact that they were presenting some solutions that we hadn't heard of before. One of them was a flex zone versus a buffer zone. So in light of the mix of ideas to mitigate or to look at, as well as some of the things that you're discussing, Oliver, it may be worth taking a pause to think it through versus going as fast as we originally thought. And anybody else or comments?
Todd, you heard from some
You
people,
know,
right?
yeah, I mean, we heard the comments. I've had parents that have come up to me, and I think, given the situation that we're in, I agree with you 100%. I don't think that if we don't do this now, we're not going to have effects later. We have time to look at it, so I agree, Bob.
and Mr. DeLano, I'm sorry.
I don't think the issue is critical at this point. I think we have time. I think that, as someone said, dynamics are such that we can make some adjustments without a full-fledged shifting of population at this point in time going forward, as opposed to moving people from places they already are. This is something that we spent a lot of time on at the time that we were opening Shattuckon. And at that point in time, we instituted those flex zones as a means of having the attendance zones last longer than they normally would. They generally, the standard is that flex zones, or excuse me, that attendance zones will hold up, particularly in a district like ours with shifting populations and so forth, for 5 to 7 years max. And the flex zones that we put into place, or the zones that we put into place, were to stretch out that as much as possible. And even in the adjustments that were proposed at this point were relatively minor. I recognize that some people thought that perhaps we hadn't thought this through and hadn't planned ahead. No, that would not be the case. But I also feel like we can afford to take time and look at this, perhaps have some parental participation in this. In the end, we may not have everybody be happy. There's little likelihood, in fact, that everybody's going to be pleased, but at least we can try to reach consensus and have as many people involved as possible. And so I support the idea of putting off a decision on this for another year.
In terms of again, there's two components to it, the elementary component and the middle school component. The middle school component, we will be transitioning, I think, 18, 19 students from that are CODA going to Acadia. And the middle school is, for all intents and purposes, a lot easier because, quite frankly with you, we have kids transitioning between buildings right now. And so those are some more personalized conversations the building principals will be having with those families. The elementary piece was a little bit different. And one of the things I certainly want to make sure from the board perspective, board appreciate, is that, as Mr. DeLalo alluded to, what we try to do is try to address things in the infancy before it grows so far out of control that we have to do what we did. How long ago was Janet? That was 7 years ago?
7, 8 years ago.
Where we moved about 3,200 kids. So just think about the magnitude of that. And so we don't want to be in that, and say this way, we won't be in that predicament because that's an awful predicament to be in as a system and as families, because it impacts everything from not only changing school, changing babysitter, changing this. It's a tremendous upheaval of the system. And right now it is a concern, and the concern is, will Arenda keep trending up? We're seeing some trend that Arenda might be stabilizing a little bit, so we're going to watch that. And the other side of it is, will Tasago keep trending down? So it's not just overpopulation, it's also a underutilization issue that we're trying to look at, and how do we balance those things moving forward. So this isn't a topic that will go away. This is a topic that, quite frank with you, we will continue to look at even through the end of this year as we try to finalize enrollments and sections for buildings, and look at it again in the fall once we get actual enrollments and kids in school, and try to figure out what's the real trend. We'll look at it again in November when we have our forecasters come and present to the board to talk about where's the trend going in terms of enrollment trends. And it's important for us to do that because we don't want to have a situation where the imbalances are so gross that it's having an adverse impact on kids. And at that point, it's not, I hate to say that, it's not even about a political or popularity contest. It's about what we need to do at that point that's truly creating environments that's good for kids, and not having a situation where kids are taking classes sitting in hallways, which we've had in this district at different points. And that's what led to the larger enrollment piece. So I just want to be clear that when we're looking at these things, it's not taken lightly. In the same way to postpone looking at it is not taken lightly. And it's not a popularity. It's never a popularity contest when we do things. It has to be a practical reasons why we do it, with some practical outcomes that we can measure and say to do will yield this, to do not to do will yield this, and what are the alternatives in between. So that's what we want to do with that piece. So I wanted to bring that to the board because while the board policy allows an administrative decision, this is a board conversation that has transpired from the very beginning, and it's a board piece that we always bring these type of conversation to the board level, have these conversations at this level as well. So I appreciate the feedback. We'll send out some communications. We have a parent meeting for tomorrow. I'm still going to have that parent meeting because there's no guarantee that people will hear tonight, even though sometimes news travel faster than we anticipate. Certainly Mrs. DeFisciani will send out some information on Facebook and Twitter and some of the other means that we use to communicate so people are aware of this particular move. And then tomorrow at this parent meeting, we'll also hopefully use it for an opportunity to explain people the process, that it's not a knee-jerk reaction that we are a process that's made up. It's very thoughtful, very careful analysis that we use. So I think people need to have appreciation of that as well. So tomorrow is the elementary parent night, and Thursday is the middle school parent night, and we'll make sure that those communications are as clear as possible when we meet with impacted parents.
I imagine the atmosphere will be very different now tomorrow night.
Well, let's hope so. But sometimes people have axe to grind, and they have it already sharpened. They have to use it. So we make sure we bring a lot of wood. The second piece is again another one of those long time coming conversation pieces, and certainly the board is aware. I think this one again, I'm going to look to Mr. Casey and Mrs. Gray and maybe Mr. DeLallo, who's been on the board longest, that we've been having a conversation about the district property and potential sales now for at least, 4 years. And finally, the town of Clifton Park, as the board knows, approved some zoning. And one of the things I just want to share with the board, I just got a correspondence from our attorney, just to talk about generally some timelines, because there'll be more specific actions that the board needs to take. And tonight is not an action discussion, more from some timeline pieces of it. One of the things that we're doing this week, tomorrow, in fact, I think, Mr. Casey, we're meeting, you have on your calendar? I'm not sure if you have it on your calendar. I'm meeting with our attorney to look at the RFP, the process, if you have time, 2:30 tomorrow, if you could do that. Because I want you to be engaged in the initial conversation. So tomorrow we'll look at the RFP document. Once we look at that document tomorrow, we have the goal of sending out to the entire board on Friday. So the entire board will have the RFP document to look at the document extensively, and with the intent of having the board approve that RFP at the May 12th board meeting. So giving the board a couple of weeks or so to really spend some time with the document, offering the feedback. We'll share the feedback with our attorney. So once we come to May 12th, we'll come in with some consensus in terms of this is what RFP, and if we need to have an executive session because it is a legal stipulation, we will deal with that as well as possible some public conversation around the RFP. And the goal then at that point is to look to issue the RFP for the sale of district property on or about June 1st. And that's become the real trigger date for us in terms of once that RFP is on the street, then we'll see what interested bidders. In the land we've purchased for the public purposes, we have land that's located behind Shattuckon, between Shattuckon and 146, some district property we're looking to sell and hopefully use the proceeds thereof to purchase land that's more developable for school purposes. Someplace else within the school district recognize that we need to to reserve and secure land for future construction and future growth, because we will have a need for future construction and future growth, and we can't wait till we have a need in order to secure land. So we need to do that, recognize and having some foresight. So June 1st or thereof become that trigger date to get an RFP on the street, and then, quite frankly with you, it'll be out there for about 7 months until January 1st or 4th. I think January 4th is that first Monday or Friday of 2016. So it's about 7 months, and sometimes you wonder, why does it take so long? Well, when you think about people buying property, there's a lot of tests they need to do to make sure that the property is as marketable, as buildable, as sellable, as usable, and all those type things as much as possible. And it's important for us to also have it out on the street long enough so we get as many bidders on it, because the more bidders, the better the competition, the better the potential sales price for the school district as well. So January 4th becomes another trigger point, and after January 4th, we'll see where we are with the process, and with the goal of March 2016, having this whole thing resolved, wrapped up, and going into the summer, thinking about planning forward in terms of potential land purchasing. The reality of it is, we have already started looking at potential land, because you don't have a lot of real high-quality land that's available, especially in this community where we have so many developments taking place or popping up all over the place. So we really need to look aggressively at potential land for future growth and development as a school district. So I just want to share that timeline and see if there are any comments that from the board, because the next time we'll have something to share will be on May 12th, our next board meeting, when the board will have a chance to discuss the RFP in some detail and hopefully act upon the RFP to get the process going. So if there are any comments that from board
I would just give, I look around the table, in terms of town, we moved into this area in 1969, and so somebody may ask, why are you getting rid of property, and then you're talking about buying other property? Well, a short history lesson. In about 1973, I presume that someone approached the board and said, we've got property across Moe Road, and if you're ever thinking of expanding, you might want to deal with us on it. And the board at the time, you used the word foresight, had the foresight to acquire property. And it's a big piece of property. However, in 1976, the State Environmental Quality Review Act went into place, and it changed the way you could deal with vacant property, especially with regard to wetlands. And that property has some wetlands that go through it. It has some nice property that goes through it, and we've built 2 buildings on that. When we actually looked at property in Half Moon previously to locate an elementary school, and we just weren't able to find it. And we owned property that we could develop, so we developed 2 schools there. But I think it's our judgment that 37 acres over there, sitting there with a wetland going through the middle of it, a drier stream, but it's still classified as a wetland, isn't something that's going to work in our future. And the fastest growing residential community in upstate New York is Half Moon, and the question is, this is the last piece of major undeveloped property in the middle of Clifton Park, and we think it's worth some good money. and the perspective of selling that and using that in a reserve account to consider with some foresight where we might go, not tomorrow, not the next day, but sometime in the future, being prepared for that while property's still available, perhaps in Half Moon, just makes a lot of sense to me, and it fits into the history of a board thinking forwardly. So I think it's a good thing to do. And we're hearing from people who want to talk to us about it and want to put in proposals on this. So it's a good thing.
Some of our residents may not understand what an RFP is.
Yeah. Request for
proposal. So we ask the best bidders to bid, and that's pretty much it's a price war that we try to create, that we get the higher end of the price. And it's important, and we're pretty excited about that process, because it literally has been 4 years in the making, if not further, because we've been talking about this actually right after we built Shattuckon, so it's probably more like 7 years in the making in terms of what we're going to do with that property and trying to use it for some commercial purposes. So a lot of exciting things happening right now in the school district. The budget, I think, is my opinion, one of the better budgets that we've put out there because of circumstances and otherwise. Some of the decisions that we're making strategically about looking at enrollment patterns and trends are very thoughtful decisions, taking into consideration the practical pieces, not only from a district practicality, but also from a parent practicality pieces. And looking at the land piece, we hope that the RFPs will come in where we are in fact being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars and getting a good return on the investment, and then having that investment to yield even better return in terms of creating capacity moving forward.
So just one quick thing, and I know this will probably come up. We sell the land, that money goes into a reserve account only for land.
Yes,
We're not
for
gonna
land purpose.
That money can't be used for anything else
That
other
would
than
be
purchasing.
that would be our intent, because we'd be foolish to do otherwise.
Exactly.
And I say that not to sound arrogant, but we would be foolish to do otherwise, because the opportunity will come when we need to purchase property, and then you'll be asking taxpayers to come out of their pocket to do something that we probably could have avoided them doing. And so that's the approach that we want to take, that this becomes a non-impact transaction for taxpayers. So, and we're pretty optimistic that we should be able to do something with that. So those are the three main pieces that I have. Again, I want to bring these up to the board because things happen and we don't meet sometime in sequence and sync. And I think it's important for us to be on the same page with these initiatives. Want me to keep going with that?
Yeah. Anybody comment? I don't.
No comment.
Okay. Yeah.
We have some blue people out there in the audience, a sea of blue T-shirts from Octane, and one of the things, and I think Mrs. Gray actually suggested this from when she was president, that we should try to have more student presentations at the board, or student-oriented presentation, recognizing tonight it's the teachers talking about student programs, because sometimes our meetings get bogged down with what I call the traditional business stuff. And tonight we have Mrs. Mickle and her blue crew here to talk about the FSD program. So Lisa, if you want to come forward and introduce some of your colleagues and what we're going to talk about.
All right. I'll play Vanna, hopefully. Right, Kelly? Good evening, and thank you for an opportunity to shine the spotlight on our Functional Skills Development Program at Octane. April is Autism Awareness Month, so great time to be able to show you some of the things that we're proud of at Octane with our students. We have 3 classes at Octane for our children. Diane Joyle works with the older children. Brian Sawyer works with our youngest group of kids, and new to Octane is Lauren Lusinger. She works with a group of children in the middle. So I'm going to turn it over to them. They're going to do some introductions, and then we have a nice video to show you as well.
Good. Thanks.
We just wanted to give you a little bit of information ahead of the video. As Lisa said, we have 3 classrooms that are supported by 2 speech therapists, 2 occupational therapists, 1 physical therapist, and 10 program aides.
Really, thank you to letting us present here tonight. We really do appreciate it. The reason we're here is really to highlight what we do, what our students do on a daily basis. And thankfully, the students at Octane have access to many of the resources that they do need to help them learn. One of those resources is staff, and Diane, highlighted the staff that's specifically hired to work with the FSD program. Fortunately, we also are lucky to be supported by the entire Octane staff, and this really allows us to provide a high-quality program for these children. Research continues to show that a program really needs to target the specific learning style of a child with autism, and we really stand behind what we're doing. We believe that we are doing that, and much of the success that we've seen is due to all of the adults, and it's due to the parents, and it's due to the staff, and we really want to recognize them and let you know.
And just lastly, we just wanted to recognize Andrea Ralph, who's a student at High School East. We collected a bunch of footage, and we just gave it to her. And she created this great video for you guys to watch. So we hope you enjoy it.
Thank you. Thanks. Bob, can you do Mr. Miller, can you do the lights?
Don't
go too far.
Okay, because we may have some questions.
We're gonna ask.
Stay close. Thank you.
Welcome to the Functional Skills Development Program at Shenendehowa. Our program at Octane provides services for children on the autism spectrum. Did you children at Octane.
Teaching our students to be independent is a crucial skill for development. We want each child to be actively engaged in all aspects of learning. In our experience, there is a direct correlation between student independence and student engagement. From the moment the children get off the bus, they are expected to be as independent as possible. Direct instruction is provided to further develop these skills. Opportunities for independence include daily jobs, hygiene activities, delivering lunch count and attendance, running errands, and care of personal belongings. Being independent and engaged directly improves their ability to learn in all settings.
Major areas of need in our students with ASD are language and communication skills. When a student enters the program as a kindergartner, the biggest focus is establishing a functional communication system. Our students communicate basic wants and needs through a variety of modalities. These modalities include the picture exchange communication system, or PECS, speech-generated devices, such as the iPad, and verbal speech. Throughout the students' time in the FSD program, they will continually work on expanding their language and communication skills in order to increase independence and interactions with the world around them. Initially, a student may begin communication with a simple one-word request and progress to carrying out a simple conversational exchange.
Academic instruction encompasses all of the core subject areas: reading, writing, spelling, math, science, and social studies. What makes our program unique is how we teach these subjects. Our job as teachers is to provide instruction tailored to each student's individual learning style. For some students, this is a one-on-one teaching format, while others learn best in a small group setting. We set the expectation that all students will learn, and each member of the FSD team works tirelessly to ensure that this goal is achieved.
The program aides who work in the FSD classrooms are integral to the success of students. Every minute of their day is devoted to student learning. Their responsibilities include, but are not limited to, teaching academic lessons, developing student independence, facilitating interactions with peers, and assisting with activities of daily living, including toileting and dining needs. All of these responsibilities are performed with dedication and professionalism on a daily basis. A genuine desire to improve the lives of the children in the FSD program is what drives them to be successful.
Social skills instruction is embedded in all activities during the school day. We place importance in remembering that our students are children first. Our goal is to provide fun experiences so that social learning occurs amongst peers in all school settings. There are perceptions that children with autism cannot or do not want to interact with others. We find that when given the proper instruction in a caring and supportive environment, our students are able to make social connections with both peers and adults.
For the students in the FSD program, speech therapy goes far beyond simply working on improving speech sounds. Many of our students enter the program without any verbal speech. It is the job of the speech therapist, along with the class team, to teach students how to develop communication skills.
This is winter.
In addition, speech therapy focuses on building functional, receptive, and expressive language skills, articulation, and oral motor skills. During these sessions, they also work on developing social skills and building relationships with others.
The service providers play a large role in the lives of the students in our program. All of the students receive a combination of speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and music therapy sessions based on their individual needs. Sessions are run on a one-to-one or small group basis and are tailored to the specific skills and focus for the students. The therapists provide an invaluable service to our students that allows them to develop daily skills that many of us take for granted.
The Functional Skills Development Program continues beyond elementary school. Students will have the support of the program in middle school, high school, and through the age of 21. In the middle school and high school, academic skills continue to addition of a larger focus on independence and functional skills, especially in the community.
Hey Jeff, where are you working? Hannaford.
Jerry, where are you working?
The students in our class is awesome. They're very kind to us, even though they have a little bit of a difference.
It's been amazing to see how much my kids have learned from the kids coming in from FSD programs, because my kids learn compassion and all about the different abilities and how they're so much more the same than they are different.
Having the FSD students in my room and having my children work with them, I find that all the children seem to be more engaged with children who are different than them. It's great, because I think if they go out into society and they see more children that way, they will definitely be able to accept others who are different than them.
It's been a really eye-opening experience for me to see how can I work with these children and have them really participate in a meaningful way.
The teachers look at her specific needs all the time. They take their time, and if it takes a long period of time, then they're going to work on it until she can master it and move on.
I really think that it's the one-on-one attention that has really allowed him to be successful, because I don't think that he would have had the successes that he's had since he's been here if you were in a normal classroom environment with a large student population. One of the fun things that's happened for me is seeing each individual child growing in different ways.
There's no stress. She's given many ample opportunities to work with a small group, large group. We really like the fact that she can go into the typical classroom, meet typical peers, use them as examples.
The children here at Octave from day one, they've been here from kindergarten, or if they come in a later grade. This is the new normal.
They're really intelligent and funny, and all of them are caring. Last year I realized that it's actually like having a best friend.
Thank you. Nice job.
How many students do you have in the, you have 3 classrooms?
Yes.
So how many students total are we? 18. From across the district, or
Correct.
just from your?
They're considered 814 programs, 8 students, 1 teacher, and 4 program aides.
Yeah.
And many of them are here this evening as well, and they're an outstanding group of support staff. They're very compassionate about their work. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have several parents here as well, too, so we appreciate them coming out this evening.
How about, Janet?
The one thing that I've noticed, and I've worked with Octave a little bit this year, they've done such a great job. I mean, they do a great job in the classroom and out, but the thing that just struck me the most is that they've built this community. I mean, the whole school, I mean, every kid and every teacher and it's so welcoming, and they've created this environment of acceptance and love and compassion, and it does celebrate the differences as opposed to acknowledging the differences or being fearful of the differences. And I have to say they've done a phenomenal job of just bringing the whole community into it. And although the day-to-day job that you do of taking these students and bringing them to new levels, I think that probably is the greatest gift you give to those students, is making the other kids that they go to school with recognize they're special, that they're really special.
Thank you. That's the best compliment you could give us.
And I just think you've done a phenomenal job, and I just congratulate all of you. It's a difficult job, but it's one that the dividends will pay forever, and I just congratulate all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just, when you were talking, I was thinking, you called me today, and I don't know if you heard the background. We got a call at 6 o'clock in the morning that the babysitter for our 1-year-old and 3.5-year-old grandson was sick today. So when my wife and I step in, so I ended up with the 11 to 3:30 shift, knowing that there was a nap in there. And the question was, would I get to the nap quicker than the
Was it
kid?
your nap or
Yeah, well, it was theirs.
I thought that was you screaming.
But I'm thinking, yeah, you called right in the middle of the screaming. But the patience it takes and the energy it takes to do that, I'm thinking with two little guys, you know, they can keep one in the jumper and one doing something else. And I look at this environment, which from the outside you could say, wow, that's really chaotic. And yet you can see a pattern in there. That's wonderful that you have made this commitment and love these kids. That shows.
Yeah,
anyway.
absolutely.
Anyone else?
You know, just, you know, very impressive. And one thing that struck me was that we have this program here in our public school. And this program rivals, and I guarantee you is better than many of the private programs that are out there. And we're doing it for the kids,
Right.
you know, and that's,
We agree.
that's huge.
Absolutely.
Thank
Well,
you.
you're welcome
Thank
to
you
come
all.
over and visit anytime. Our doors are always open, so if you'd like to see it firsthand, certainly come visit. Okay? Thank you again for the
Thank you
time.
very much.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, turn on the lights, because the other presentation we have, this is a time of the year where we talk about textbooks, and Dr. Wood will come explain some of the books, but the timing of this is important for us as well, and you'll hear from Dr. Woods that we try to maximize our resources. So as we look to close out one year, we look at needs for the coming year, see how much of those needs we could address in one year and transition to the next year. And so she'll talk about a lot more about that, as well as our textbook plan that we have in place to ensure that we're keeping current with things. So again, a lot of processes we have in the school district, so things aren't by accident, that we try to predict things as much as possible and try to address those things in a very strategic way. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Wood to talk about both journeys and textbooks.
Sure. Well, I'll start with the textbooks, if that's okay, and then we'll transition into in a recap of what we did last year with journeys and have been implementing this year, and talking about our coaches as well. So I have before you, it was actually in your board packet on Friday, excuse me, it was in your packet in terms of the textbook approval request that will be on the agenda for later. But I wanted to just take a minute and walk through the process in terms of arriving at who ends up on this list. And I would say that we have been much more systematic in terms of how we have been looking at new textbook adoptions. This year, I met with every academic leader, and we talked about what are the needs of each course. And then beyond that, we also, as you're well aware, developed those progression documents. As part of those progression documents, we detailed every textbook that we have on the books for every single course. And it became part of the conversation with the academic leaders. Where is there a need? And every year we set aside funds to purchase new textbooks. I would say the list in front of you represents where we are ready to make a commitment to move forward. There were many other courses under consideration for new textbooks. However, when the academic leaders sit with the teachers, particularly I could give you several examples of Regents level courses at the high school where the teachers roll up their sleeves and they look at all of the available textbooks on the market right now, and they tend to be underwhelmed and sit back and say, you know, well, we think this publisher will be coming out with something next year. Could we wait one more year? And there is a lot of that understanding in the system of if we commit, we're going to commit, and we recognize it's a large investment. And in many cases, we have had teachers asking us to delay another year or saying, you know, I'd like some summer curriculum time to come in and pull together online resources that are high quality, or other resources that they're pulling together and posting places. So really, I guess as that part of this process, I just want to note that there's a great deal of self-discipline that goes on really at every department level before settling on anything. And also we have developed a 5-year textbook plan where we have detailed what our purchases have been very carefully the last several years, and also projecting going forward. And I will tell you, some areas that we had on the list for this year for purchases, the teachers of the academic leaders have said, may we put that off one more year? May we wait for publishers to come up with something again? Or we have enough teachers who are interested in applying for Chromebooks and they would prefer to come up with some more online resources. So what is in front of you this evening? You have some sample books. You'll notice that some of these, that LOTE is heavily represented this evening, in part because our college level courses, as we adopted we included in the program of studies last year the SUNY level 2 LOTE classes, the college has asked us specifically to purchase these books. And also the AP courses, there are very specific recommendations for books, and you'll see on the chem book right there, it says AP right on the spine. So these are the books that correspond with the AP courses. And it's actually a great time, particularly I believe it's the AP Bio book. The book we had been using, the companion that students often use to support the review, the one that they could purchase no longer matched the textbook we had in the classroom, and it honestly was a source of frustration for families. So we made the commitment to upgrade the textbook so that when they got the review book, it was in alignment with what they had been studying throughout the year. So you'll see that we have the language books proposed, we have science books proposed, and the third area represented is elementary social studies. We have not purchased elementary social studies materials in many years. And again, there are some textbooks on the market. When the teachers that were pulled together representing every elementary school looked at the ones on the market, they were underwhelmed. They found the best resource actually are written locally by just a downstate, I say locally, about an hour and a half downstate, BOCES, and it's teachers that have come together and written what are called units of studies that integrate literature with the study of social studies. They're all online, so you don't have copies of textbooks that we're going to be purchasing, but it will be a nice resource for teachers to have where, honestly, we give them a lot of credit. They have been pulling together a lot of different resources over the last several years to support the social studies curriculum, and the feedback when Mrs. Strand just pulled the committee together to look at it was overwhelmingly that they would appreciate this additional support and resource in their classroom. So are there any questions related to proposed textbooks?
So this will be not in addition to what we currently have, this will be in replace of? Okay.
Correct.
That's okay.
I have to imagine in X number of years from now, we won't be looking at something like this. It'll all be this, eventually.
Eventually.
I think so.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's
good imagination,
yeah. I have to say, honestly, we're finding many teachers are more ready for that than publishers can keep up with it. There are not, and some publishers that have done it, it's a disappointing replacement where they literally just put a PDF online, or they still require you to purchase the hard copy. And in our mind, and you've heard about our middle school science discovery tech book that we're so pleased with because that was reinvented. That is something that's very different. And even through this year, our usage is off the charts. Discovery, talks about Shenendehowa really across the country in terms of our usage of that product.
Any other questions? Thank you. Good. Someone join us?
Yes. Thank you. So,
Is there a presentation?
yes, there is a presentation. So, speaking as a follow-up to textbooks, last year we were here talking about a new literacy series. And you were also aware that as 2 years in a row we adopted new series, we adopted the Go Math 2 years ago for the K-5 level, and the Journey series this year, we also brought on board coaches to support reaching the new curriculum and incorporating the new textbooks in the classroom, the new resources. So with us this evening, we have Kathleen Strangis, the Academic Administrator for English Language Arts and Social Studies at the elementary. We also have Kristen Scrum, our elementary math coach, and Rose Barra, our Academic Administrator for Math and Science, also at the elementary level. Renee Young, our literacy coach, sends her regrets. She is resting a back injury at home per doctor's orders, or trust me, she would have been here because she has a lot to celebrate in terms of work that has been done this year.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's always so nice to be able to present to you both our process that we've walked through already, as well as share some goals to come. So thank you for this opportunity. As Dr. Wood pointed out, this year is our first year of implementation for Journeys. And if you recall, about 2 years ago, well, actually about 3 years ago, we first started to look at the Common Core Learning Standards and help our teachers understand what did they look like, what does it mean in the classroom, and how do we translate that into practice for our students. So the Journey series really ideally was taken on to help us with that task. And having said that, we also worked with our Shenendehowa Balanced Literacy Framework to design what a literacy block looks like. So this year has been about making that come alive for our teachers.
And as you might imagine, a literacy series at the elementary level is, this wide and this big. And so our goal was to help teachers understand what each piece was, how to use each piece, which piece is best for each child. So it was a monumental task in that way, and our number one desire was to create a more consistent, comprehensive literacy experience for our students across all 8 buildings. So moving forward, the implementation this year, we focused on unpacking all those things and getting familiar with the resources and using our curriculum map as sort of our center stone in that way. Whenever we saw a connection to units of study and we knew that we wanted to be able to have sustainable resources, we used our curriculum map as our anchor in that way. We also offered professional development on many different platforms. When we took on the series, we promised very clearly to our teachers, recognizing that our teachers too are on a continuum of learning. Many are veterans and engaged in best practices, and many are new or just would like to adapt new practices. Having said that, we had to offer a plan of support for all of our teachers in that way, and a critical component to that was our literacy coach. And as Dr. Wood points out, she would be here with great enthusiasm to share all of her work with you this evening. Her goal this year really focused on helping teachers with that journey series, modeling lessons in classrooms, talking with teachers in that coaching conversation. And often when we think about coaches, we think in terms of the whistle and the hat kind of athletic coach, but I want you to also put another picture in your head there, more like a coach in a journey. Cinderella's coach, it's extravagant, and it goes with her on this journey. So Renee has been, no pun intended, on a journey this year of her own with many of our classroom teachers. We started in September, Superintendent's Conference Day, right away, opening our doors with teachers, handing them plans, scope and sequence of skills, helping them transcend any misunderstandings that they could have had. And then we went further development throughout the year with Words Their Way, which is the spelling or the phonics component, working with words within a literacy block. And then we decided to target very specifically guided reading practices within the literacy block. And that was part of our sort of initial message to teachers, very deliberate in that way, so that we can in fact individualize instruction whenever possible. Coaching by the numbers, here you see numbers thinking about almost 330 elementary teachers, one person, but we really echoed and tried to piggyback upon the success of our math coach. We highlighted certain buildings and certainly data drives, and so we looked for where Renee's talents and specialty could best fit, as well as how can we continue to deliver that consistent message for professional development, and so that we can deliver in all 8 buildings. So we had some workshops where teachers came out to the SIL and visited with Renee for half day. We had others opportunities where we joined at faculty meetings, and then we had even more opportunities where we had this sort of 1-hour model. Often as adult learners, an hour is our max, right? Give me one piece, I want to walk away with it, and I want to put it in practice right away. And so that 1-hour model is very helpful. It's been very successful this year. Teachers appreciate that small chunking of information. There were additional planning meetings. Again, if Renee was here, she would share with you her favorite sort of scenario is when she gets to meet with a teacher prior to. You get to sort of plan and discuss what you'd like to see or what you'd like to see happen in the classroom. Renee can go in and model or then observe, and then there's a follow-up meeting. So sort of like a 3-piece situation there, but those tend to be the most productive because it's that collaborative conversation and that embedded classroom practice that tends to have the most long-standing effect. So the coaching piece, I think that my partner, Ms. Farah, is going to speak to. We tried to combine and transition coaching whenever we can, knowing that this is Renee's first year in coaching. And if you think back to Kristen's first year, it was a lot of relationship building. It was a lot of getting into classrooms and having teachers understand what actually is available to them. So Renee spent her time in that way, and I think math is going to take us to year 2.
We're very fortunate that both Kristen and Renee have this wonderful camaraderie. They work very collaboratively. They even share the same office. And so one of the nice things that's developed from that is that we now have resources that are complementary in both math and ELA that are now embedded in our curriculum maps. And the purpose of these electronic resources is so that they're not available just for today, but they're there available for our teachers as we move on from year 2 to year 3. smiling because it is true that both Renee and Kristen are very talented models. Modeling is a strategy for coaching that's very intimate. It's that one-on-one relationship between the teacher and the coach, which is focused directly on classroom instruction. As the teacher observes the coach modeling a lesson, they can see what it looks like, they can hear what it sounds like. They start to develop this confidence so that they can implement what is being instructed in the classroom into their daily classroom instruction practices. About a year ago, Kristen, Elizabeth, and I were here to talk about math in year 1. We came away from that meeting with some really good feedback. So Kristen and I decided to take that feedback and gather some more from parents, from teachers, and to take a look at some data, our common assessment data, and take a look at those things that might turn into goals for year 2, strategies for year 2, so that we can make the most impact on our students, on our teachers, and on our families. So I want to turn over to Kristen now so she can talk about how we take this information and turn it into practice.
Good evening, everyone. My year 2 has looked a little different this year. As we said, it was really driven by 3 driving forces of data, parent feedback, and teacher need. And with data specifically, we were able to take our local assessments, our New York State assessments, and really find the strands in math where the teachers and students were still feeling uncomfortable with those Common Core learning standards with. And from that, we were able to develop some of those different unique experiences in the classroom. So in particular, one area was fractions. And so I offered a workshop at the SIL in regards to fractions, and then did implement those workshops or those activities in 15 different plus classrooms where kids were building sets of fraction tiles so they could see the relationship between denominators that worked well together and others that did not. And also data at the building level, they were able to see that, in particular, Ranjan was struggling with problem solving, multi-step problem solving. And so the administrator, Mr. Roberts, contacted me, asked me to present a little 30-minute presentation on systematic problem solving for their staff. And from that, then the teachers were a little more comfortable in reaching out and bringing me into their classroom to do that. So above are just some examples of different things that we really focused on this year. Teacher input and needs this year really brought a new level, almost a new tier of teachers for me to work with. So year 1 was a lot of our higher flyer teachers who were pretty quick to get comfortable with our resources and were ready to make them their own, where year 2 brought out this new level of teachers that were not sure of what they didn't know last year, but year 2, okay, I know I went through it once, I know I could do this better, or I know I need a little more support here, could you come and model this? So I feel like this year I got to that brand new level of teachers and used that. There was definitely a need for fluency, so number talks was a huge priority for me this year, getting in and giving them that quick 15 minutes of fluency that would really help build their mental math and support the strategies that we're learning in Go Math. And those were just some ways that, again, we're keeping all of those things, putting them into the curriculum maps so that when I go in and model something, it's going from practice or theory to practice. And it's not just something you get at a workshop that sits there. And it's like, okay, I've got this great idea, but I don't know how to use it. And so this year has really been about taking those ideas and really showing them what they look like in the classroom so that they have, this is what it looks like, sounds like, and now I'm comfortable doing it. And I think one of the biggest parts for us this year has been the parent feedback. Parents have been pretty vocal about not enough resources, especially in math, in regards to how do I help my child at home? You're teaching them this brand new math. I have no idea what to do or how to support them. So from that, we've created, we had a couple opportunities where ELA had a series night where they talked about the new series, introduced them to the resources, what it looks like in the classroom. Math, we did something a little bit different this year because they had heard about Go Math last year. So we actually took parents through a Do the Math night, and they actually worked through some division 3 or 4 different ways. They worked through some addition strategies. They worked through making tens. And really got to experience what their child was experiencing firsthand, albeit short, but it did give them that feeling of, okay, we're getting somewhere with this. In addition to that, we do have Think Central as a common warehouse for both ELA and math. It's one place for the parents to go and log into, albeit sometimes it's clunky. Doesn't always work the way we want to. We're not always quite sure where that resource is that I need to help my child at home. So with that idea of trying to make it a little more transparent, this year I specifically have worked to develop a math website, so to speak, as a parent resource. So where each lesson of our Go Math is also going to be linked to a video or an overview of the strategy, so that our parents have one quick place to go just to kind of get a detail or a draft of what they need to support their child at home. And this is just a sample of kind of where that website has started. So the goal is for that to hopefully be up and running for September.
I know that in Gowanna, one of the 6th grade math teachers, she has the video of the lessons, and it's been immensely helpful, being able to go and know right where to go and see, okay, this is how we're supposed to do it, or, so that's huge.
And that's what the goal of this will hopefully be as well, too. And then parents don't also have to find that resource, you know, because it's one thing to just Google the standard, but what one specifically addresses what my child is learning. So that's what's going to be helpful for them. The other piece with the parents that we have found to be an area of feedback for us has been homework. Homework has been taking an immense amount of time, and so with my teachers, I've really been focusing on what's the purpose of homework and how to make it more systematic for our students and our parents so that it's not becoming an area of frustration or really cutting out of that parent time that they're having at home with their children, because we know how limited that is as it is. Yeah. These are just some testimonials from our teachers that we've worked with kind of in general.
Collaboration with my coaches has allowed me to plan more effectively. Having 2 new series introduced in the past 2 years, there's been an abundance of wonderful resources available to teachers. However, navigating through them can be challenging. Collaboration has helped me to utilize the technology better, as well as be more effective in meeting the needs of my individual learners.
At the Literacy and Learning College over the last few years has been so beneficial to me as a teacher. Not only am I able to enjoy all of the beneficial resources that they can provide to me with their programs and new techniques in teaching, but the modeling that they're able to just come into my room whenever I need them and show me how to actually implement these with my kids. Not only helping me become more experienced with these techniques, but with my students becoming experienced as well. I can remember one time when one of the coaches came in and not only taught me, but my students as well in a certain strategy. And it's been just a wonderful opportunity. They are such great resources for peer collaboration and planning. And I really just think that having a literacy and math coach available to me at all times has just really helped make my teaching and my program stronger.
We wanted to share with you a sort of a summary slide, if you will, that speaks to what our plans are possibly for next year. In literacy here, we realize how highly effective, even just, these are just 2 testimonials. We thought about asking many, many teachers to appear, but that would be a little bit too much. And we thought, what's the best way to capture that information? And often it's difficult to capture it because it's that one light bulb moment, or that opportunity that you see a teacher engage with the student gets it, the teacher says, I should have done it that way before, or I didn't think of it that way. It's very hard to bring that information to you in a quantitative way. But having said that, we see that there are many successful opportunities. Teachers have expressed success. We've dabbled with a little bit of survey in the literacy world as well, asking teachers feedback on opportunities with Renee, our coach, opportunities for future professional development. And the one thing that we know that we continue to work with are the reading levels of our students, and focusing on how we assess that and then how we use that information in our instruction. So that's that small group guided reading piece again. And then we recognize with the social studies information that you're looking at this evening, if you remember, Dr. Wood said it was literacy based. So when we had the committee come out to look at that, one of the things the teacher said is, please, Kathleen, can we link this in some capacity? So much of Journeys is social studies and science based. So what we'd like to do is, over the summer and certainly going forward with Renee's help, is actually curriculum map anywhere there's possible links for social studies content. So you will see some of that. It's like a shared time in that way. It's best use of time. Students can be reading at instructional levels, but with social studies content. So we want to combine forces that way, and as I mentioned, science. So I get to join forces with Rose over the summer again and help to align some of those materials. And then, of course, we talk about sustainability. We understand that there's sort of a finite time to our coaching positions, and so we're looking to make sure that our teachers understand that where the resources are for future access, what else can we put in place, and certainly we understand that the best form of success is that sort of, doing what I do differently now because of your assistance. So I'll let Rose speak to math.
So our work in mathematics really is just going to be a continuation of the good work that we're doing now. We want to bolster our curriculum maps. The one thing that we haven't mapped yet are those standards for mathematical practice. And this is a great opportunity for Kristen and I to take some of the great resources that she has found from lots and lots of different places to organize them based on those standards for mathematical practice. It'll be a very effective place for teachers to go for resources. Additionally, the website will continue to grow, and we will continue to take into consideration feedback from both parents and teachers to direct our PD for the future.
So overall, we've been very pleased with the model of bringing on the coaches to support the adoption. As noted, we had Kristen for the last 2 years and have made a similar commitment to a literacy coach to have the literacy coach for now a second year as well with the adoption of Journeys. I will say we have sent out a survey to our teachers in regard to how Journeys has gone in the classroom. And I guess I would lead with the fact that 93.4% of respondents, and we had nearly half of the teachers respond, which is a sizable number, indicate that they are somewhat satisfied or very satisfied with Journeys. And trust me, we will take somewhat satisfied in the first year of a major change as a sign of success, certainly in the classroom.
Yeah, Janet.
What is my understanding, Kristen, where do you go from here?
Kristen goes back to the grade 6 accelerated position that many families have been bemoaning her absence. We've had wonderful people in their sense, but that is her position in the system.
Rose, you had suggested that you were going to continue to work on the website and do more programs. So, Kristen, you'll be doing that as well? Okay, so.
Somewhat. Finishing it up this year, we have talked about using Kristen some for some professional development and some release and some superintendent's conference days when it fits. She has been really exemplary, and her work with teachers very powerful, and any way that we can continue to access her knowledge, we intend to do, certainly recognizing that she will have other priorities next year as well.
Well, I think that's important because I do think Kristen has developed a rapport, as I'm sure Renee has as well. And to lose that would be a shame. Even if it's doesn't look exactly the same, I highly recommend that we continue to have that kind of contact. She's obviously doing a great job, and that we'd like to see her continue in some capacity. Although I think the 6th grade math would probably like to have you back too. The other thing is, and I keep on thinking of our Speak Out bill at the high school, and how the students were asking for the same thing that all of this represents, and that we see how well it works here, and what a great tool it would be in the toolbox for the high school student to have these same kind of resources and videos and components that they can go to if it's something that they're not understanding, from their classroom instruction or going at homework. Just one more tool in the toolbox for them. And I
think of that girl who said, talking about the flipped classroom.
Right.
She said, in my classroom, it's not a flipped classroom, but I figured out how to get the ID of my friend, and I can get in and watch the lesson given by the other teacher. So because if I don't understand it, I want an immediate reference, and I'm able to get it.
And it's not necessarily a reflection of one teacher or another teacher. Sometimes it's just the delivery that's just something different. And what a great resource it would be for our students to have this kind of a program as well. So I say kudos, congratulations. Let's find some other ways to promote it.
How about Bob?
Yeah, I'll start this off with, it seems like math had a bigger gap to cover moving to Common Core, just from the parents' comments I've heard over the years. It seems like a lot of parents grew up the classic skill and drill, the rote drills, and it's just part of their DNA when they're coaching their kids at homework. Do you see any corner turning based on the parent comments? Are they picking it up that, the amount of time that they spent nowadays, what a computer or a spreadsheet or a calculator could do, there's a need now to understand, are those numbers right? Are you picking that up from parents at all? Or?
The best example I could give was the body language of the parents who came in on Do the Math night and what they looked like when they came in. Many of them had Go Math worksheets in their hand and weren't too pleased. And by the time they left, we had relaxed bodies and we had smiles and we had chit chat and happy and thanks for showing us an aha moments. It is hard for us to capture enough of that because every parent needs it at the point of frustration at the kitchen table, right? So the more we can provide the support at home and the more, and the conversation we've had about making sure that what we're sending home is reasonable. We heard many stories, and some of us have lived it, where it just seems to drag on and on and on at night. And that's a recipe for frustration on the part of parents and students. So I would say we have made some ground. We've covered some positive ground, but there's still more to be done. Mm-hmm. And the best is when we see students experiencing success, because that parents react to what they see as their child's experience.
And another question is, how would you characterize the parents that did attend to do the math night? I mean, I went to the middle school technology night. I thought a lot of the parents I saw were very familiar faces that tend to be very involved with their kids, and they seem to be receptive to this. But my concern is situations where the parents are not so involved. Who's helping those kids, or are they sort of on their own and then they turn to their teacher? How do you manage those?
Yeah, and it is a challenge, especially any evening. I would say we have gotten a greater turnout in the last 2 years for our parent nights than we've ever seen in the past. But we recognize we're still not getting all of them. And the website is an attempt to address it, because going back to, you don't know there's an issue until an issue occurs at the kitchen table. And the more we can have it at the point of need for families, the better. But the point you bring up is a good one in terms of we're going to have to make this resource available multiple times and remind people about it multiple ways. Because again, until you need it, it's just something out there. But once you actually have to go and access it, that's when it becomes a savior. And I would say in terms of the profile of the parents that came that night, I noted many engineers in the audience who really questioned this math approach.
Just want to offer a couple comments. While the questions that are being asked are important, probably the most important thing that we're trying to do is, in fact, empower the students themselves to be independent learners, and subsequently empowering the teachers to empower students to be independent learners. And we're seeing it from kindergarten on, where kids are, in fact, getting it. And the more we have kids getting it, quite frankly with you, not that we don't want parents to be perseverating and hovering over their kids at home, we want the experience in the classroom to be so rich that the instruction isn't taking place at home. At home become truly a merely complementary piece to it. And that is one of the big challenges that we have embraced over the past year. We recognize that we do have to bridge the gap with parents, but more importantly, how do we bridge the gap with teachers and students in the classroom? And that's where those aha moments are taking place, and I think you saw a lot of those today. And the second piece of it, quite a bit premature, because we're very much in emphasis stages. It's funny that Mrs. Gray brought up the whole notion of how do we capture these things, videos and those kind of things, because the technology exists. And Dr. Wood and I just spent 4 hours, what it was, yesterday, was it? It seemed like weeks ago, with a particular company that's looking at some new technology related to these things. And I share that because in the same way we have these very practical concerns, we're also trying to find sustainable solutions, things that, quite frankly, to run themselves. And things from the end user, be it the teacher, it's not become another, oh my God, I got to do these 10 things before I get to start my lesson kind of thing. So we're looking at that very closely because we just don't want to jump on the first thing that's out there and find out, almost like the textbook process. Just because it's the one with the beautiful cover doesn't necessarily mean the content is what we need. So we're looking at some of those things, and as the board knows, as a school district, we talk about investment in technology as one of the priority areas. So it's probably going to be sooner than later that we'll have different capacity within our system to do more of these things that we're talking about, because we do recognize that our kids grow up in that world where they access information differently. Our teachers are growing much more comfortable with that, and because it's a transition for us as adults to be in that world all the time. And so that's the evolution that's happening very organically, which is how we want it to happen, because we just don't want it to be one of those, yeah, I like it or I don't like it, versus this is just how things are, and that's what we want to have. This is how things are. This is how we function. So more to come on that, and certainly we hope, Mrs. Gray, that you know, yes, you won't be on the board next year, but we hope that you'll be watching a streaming video where we'll be doing a presentation about some of these things, and you're going to sit here and say, wow, that's exactly what we're talking about, because a lot of things now, remember 3-4 years ago, we were talking about the idea for coach, and now we're on our second coach. And so those things evolve, and I think the questions here put all that into context, and I think it's important for people to recognize from where we come, where we are, and more importantly, all the potential where we could go with the things that we have, and having people like, and I just want to particularly highlight Rose and Kathleen. You're talking about, you know, it's so funny, they're so mild-mannered and soft-spoken here, but they're very extremely aggressive of going at what we need to do to find out. Assertive, I'm sorry. Assertive. And I want to compliment that, because they've been tremendous assets, because we've made a lot of transitions at the elementary level, a lot of necessary transitions. And having great people like that, and the building administration that's been very supportive and embracing of this, and made the transition a lot smoother than we anticipated. But a lot of work yet to be done. And so your questions are certainly not falling on deaf ears. And in fact, we both smiled when you said it, because we just had this conversation and sat for 4 hours looking at a whole bunch of different things. And we're trying to figure out what's the best way to do it, though. And that's going to be the key part of it. We want to do it the best way, not just because it's the newest way. So I appreciate that.
We've had a math coach for a few years. We're not going to have a math coach in that form next year. If we start to see issues trickling up, do we have the ability to re-implement the math?
Well, we do PD in many different ways, and that's the beauty of what we've been doing over the years, trying to build different capacity. And so I guess I would answer the question this way: if there is a growing need, we will find a way to address the growing need. And that's probably the best way to address it, because what we can't afford to do is get locked into things, just do it just because this way we've always done it.
Right.
There's too much of that, and we need to be able to evolve and make the modifications and the adjustments with the time. And so it's about, are we willing to address the need? The answer to that is yes. How do we effectively address the need? That's where we have to sit down and figure out how part of, but the why is never debate, and the what is should never debate, but the how is where debate what's the best way to do it.
I'm just struck. This is like preaching to the choir. But, you know, from the earlier presentation of what we're doing at Octay, and then we talk about what we're doing here, and I think of the picture of that young teacher who walked from Saranac Lake to Albany and said, and her comment was, I wish the governor and some of these folks would walk in my shoes, would walk in our shoes to see what we're dealing with. The full spectrum, in the sense that politically people like to put out there is they're not doing enough, they're not focused in the right way, and we're covering the board, and we're investing. I mean, I remember numbers, I don't know why, but you know, I remember what we spent for the literacy package. I remember looking at that list, seeing that the list price was $1.5 million, and somehow, through whatever magic, we got it down to something over $500,000. That's a big deal. You know, that's way greater than that whole list you brought us tonight. And to invest in coaches behind it, and to have people say, well, your teachers, you got too many people falling in the doing a good job category. Well, we're trying to make them do a good job. We're trying to help them get there. We're doing intervention. We're modeling. That's what we should be about. And to look at it from the outside and give these you know, political speeches, when you see where the rubber hits the road, you really appreciate what we're doing here. So I just applaud the district for this, and I'm glad that we keep talking about what's the next train we're getting on? Where are we going from here? It's not resting on laurels. Yeah, the coach thing really works well, and we've locked in, but where do we go from here? And how do we deal, Todd, when we see slippage where and we're watching it, and the word that, the people on the outside like to say, well, they're not doing it with data. No, we are doing it with data. We are doing it with data. So great job.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, appreciate it. No. You're the president, you could. No, thank you. No, seriously. Thank you again, ladies. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Thank you. A lot of good stuff happening. So those are our presentations tonight. We'll ask the board if the textbooks that are on the table, that you had a preview of the write-up from Dr. Wood earlier in the packet, we'll be asking for adoption tonight, because one of the things we try to do is try to purchase some of the things out of this year's budget and again create some capacity for next year. So we leverage opportunity from year to year as well. So that's part of the reason why the timing becomes important, because we want to have the purchases made and covered in this current fiscal year and create some capacity for the next fiscal year to do some other things as well. So I appreciate the board action on that later on the agenda. So that's it for us.
Great. Well, we'll move to action items. We had the BOCES administrative budget vote. Somebody have it in front of them what the number is? I don't even know what the number is.
1 second.
It's about 8 million?
While we're getting the actual number.
8,092,607.
There you go.
While we're getting the actual number, you should know that
8 million.
The administrative budget is, I should say, perhaps say, dominated by legacy costs, not the actual operation of the executive officers or the executives that oversee the operation and direct the operation of BOCES. In fact, they have remained relatively stable, if not actually declined, over the last several years. What you're seeing, on the other hand, is the result of law which passes all costs of retiree health insurance into the administrative budget. And so the growth is a consequence of both premiums being higher and more people being retired.
Thank you. So Gary, in case people don't know, Gary's not only on our school board, he's on the BOCES board as well, so he's our resident expert on this. We have a resolution, which is the way we handle these matters. So I'll read the resolution, then ask for a motion and a second. So the resolution is resolved that the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of Albany, Schoharie, Schenectady, Saratoga counties be authorized to expend the sum set forth in the administrative budget document in the total of $8,092,607 during the school year 2015-16, and to raise such sum by assessments to component school districts, non-component school districts, other BOCES, and other sources as required by law. Could I have, Janet, a motion? Second. Bob? Any questions or further? All those in favor? That's it. And Gary, do you want to talk to us about the candidate resolution?
The other responsibility we have tonight is to elect 3 members for the BOCES board, and it's done the same way we do. It's a rotational thing. Only so many people come up each time, and there are 3 vacancies that are actually occupied by incumbents at the present time that are up for a vote. And based on my experience working with these people, I would say there is absolutely no reason not to return the incumbents to their seat. They're willing to serve. They serve diligently. They're committed to both the BOCES and more so to the service of the constituent districts. And so I would recommend that as a board that we cast our votes for Jeff Brandt, Len Lenhart, and Barbara Morrow.
So is that in form of a motion?
Yes.
There we go. Thank you.
Second.
Second. We have a couple seconds here. Any questions or comments, Jeff?
Discussion. And Gary and I had a discussion offline about this. I noticed in reviewing the materials on BOCES that out of 10 members of the board, there's only 1 from Saratoga County. I'm understanding that Saratoga County was kind of latecomers to this particular board. Love to see more participation or opportunity for districts in Saratoga County to participate on that board. I'm not sure how to get there, but
I certainly can pass it on to the superintendent and whatever. Yeah.
Thanks. Good. Thanks for bringing it up, Jim. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Approved. And we have approval of new textbooks, which Elizabeth just described to us. Look at this. Motion, Janet, second, Todd. Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion carries. Before we move to get a motion on adjournment, I do want to point out that our next regular meeting, business meeting, is not until Tuesday, May 12th. It's not only a business meeting, but it's by law a required budget hearing, which we've described before. It is wacky to have a budget hearing 7 days before a budget's passed, after everything's printed, everything's through. We've tried to provide opportunity for people to comment, and that's why we're doing the road shows, to make sure people get questions out there. And there is a community conversation this Saturday at Acadia at 9:30. That being said, could I have a motion for adjournment? Bob, second. Jim, all those in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.